You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 90, and it is our Friday episode. My name is Clark from FiveCardGuys on Instagram, but it is a little quieter today because I am hosting by myself. You know, I just had enough of Hyung and John stealing my spotlight, so here I am being a one-man show. Actually, all of our schedules got a little bit crazy heading into November. Hyung is actually flying out to Dominican Republic and to Mexico for the next few weeks as a coach for the junior national baseball team representing Canada. They'll be competing in the World Qualifiers, hoping to qualify for the 2023 WBSC U18 Baseball World Cup in Taiwan. So good luck, Hyung. I'll be away myself for a week on a family vacation. But then when I get back, John and I will be holding the fort down along with a special guest host till Hyung gets back. So stay tuned for those upcoming podcast episodes. Should be a lot of fun. We did manage to record one more episode with the three of us together, so look out for that show this coming Tuesday. Okay, for this episode, since it's just myself, I thought I would just ramble about why I love sports cards. Maybe a little bit about how I personally got back into the hobby after a 2-decade hiatus and why I'm still bullish on the sports card industry in general. So I hear a lot of similar stories about how a lot of current collectors got back into the hobby, especially having done several interviews with some of our hobby friends for the podcast, and even meeting and being reacquainted with old real-life buddies because of sports cards. Hyung and John, my podcast co-hosts, are the perfect example of that. You know, when the hobby started to pick up again, because really, us 30 and 40-year-olds got the collecting bug out of nostalgia and the fact we had full-time jobs, which meant having more disposable income to spend on sports cards. Yeah, it was fun to connect with old friends to rip some wax. And it was fun chasing hits. And for me, as well as a lot of collectors I know, it was fun flipping so that we can buy more sports cards. It became this addiction that we had to start hiding from our significant others. I mean, how many of you guys ripped a pack or 2 or 3 in your car? So anyway, maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, I got together with 4 of my other friends from church who also liked to collect. And I thought maybe we could start up a website just writing about sports cards. You know, like top rookie cards of our favorite players, investment strategies, listing cool products and hits that we come across on eBay. So the 5 of us started FiveCardGuys.com. Now, long story short, the other 4 guys kind of lost interest over time, probably when they saw how much money they were spending on sports cards. And the fact, you know, that they weren't writers either, it was probably hard for them to contribute to the blog regularly, which I totally understand. But for me, I mentioned this a few times in past podcast episodes, but being a journalist for, I want to say, probably at least 15 years, working at a newspaper as a reporter and then a managing editor, writing is my thing. So now I just run FiveCardGuys alone. I left journalism actually a few years ago, mainly because the newspaper industry was dying, unfortunately, and I pivoted to digital and social media marketing. That's when I started to really ramp up FiveCardGuys on various social media channels, first on Twitter and Facebook, of course. But then it was on Instagram where I saw the most success, where I just had the idea of creating a page where I would highlight some of the best high-end sports card auctions on eBay every day for the past 6 years now. And it just got good traction. I love curating my daily auctions page, which is the link in bio on my Instagram page, and just gawking at some of these ridiculous, amazing cards. Now, of course, it's evolved with more of our podcast content, which we post on both FiveCardGuys and Cards to the Moon, which has its own dedicated Instagram page. And I'm a stats geek, so I like to see trends using Card Ladder, which I think is an amazing tool. And then, I make quick IG reels or TikToks to show things like how much a card has increased or decreased in value over the last few years. One of the more popular series I've been putting out lately is the one I call Prospecting is Hard, where you just see how much some of these prospect and rookie cards go for with all the initial hype, and how much many of them have fallen in value when they don't reach their potential. That said, I still personally love prospecting because there's always that chance you'll really hit with one player, and if you sell at the right time, that could be a nice windfall for you. But honestly, I also like prospecting because I'm a big sports guy and I like to root for the player. I just picked up, whether it's their rookie card or whether they're on my fantasy team. Just kind of makes watching sports a little more fun. And it's probably the gambler in me, I guess. But I think a lot of collectors feel the same way. Now, how I got into podcasting is that through a mutual friend, I reconnected with Hyung and John. He introduced me to their sports card WhatsApp group, and the three of us quickly realized we talk a lot about sports cards. So Hyung initially suggested the idea of starting a podcast, and I was in immediately. I kind of missed that about journalism, where I could just interview people or have a conversation about really any topic just for a good story. And now, almost a year and a half later, we're still recording new episodes every Tuesday. And all you loyal listeners know we added a second show every other Friday just because the positive feedback has been tremendous. We met some new hobby friends who come onto the pod, like Chris Costa, who was our first interview guest. He opened Card Vault, which is doing amazing, I hear. Leon Cho, Brian Dennison, Scotty B, two-time guest host, Will Chong, who runs a LCS here in Toronto, Refractor Jones, and Nazim Huda we just had last week. The list goes on and on. And we're definitely looking forward to connecting with even more fellow collectors to hear their stories as we grow our podcast. And besides meeting new people, one of the main reasons we started the podcast was that we know the hobby can always improve, which is why we always have our hobby headlines segment, where we try to dive deeper into relevant hobby issues or discuss just the latest hobby news. So that's been fun, and that's why we don't ever worry about not having new topics to discuss for each show, because there's always something going on in the hobby, like backyard breaks, which I'm not going to get into right now. Maybe when Hyung and John return, we'll dive deeper into that. All right, lastly, if we're honest, the hobby isn't as fun for a lot of collectors because of this bear market we're in. Your card portfolio is down. My card portfolio is down. My Aaron Judge Bowman Chrome Refractor Auto card that's going up on Golden this week probably already lost a ton of value because freaking Judge is in the biggest playoff slump right now, and the Yankees are on the brink of elimination. But I still think it's fun, man. The investor side of me is still there, don't get me wrong, but the collector side of me is coming out more during this bear market. I'm like salivating at some of the grail cards that I'm desperately trying to save up for while prices are this low. We've talked about it a lot on our pod. This might be one of those few chances to pick up some nice cards at a really good or decent value, in my opinion. I personally think once the economy picks up again, it can be maybe 2-3 years from now, so you'll have to be patient. But I think two things are going to happen. Some of these grail cards are going to start going up in value as we head out of a recession, and I believe collectors are going to be willing to spend more money again on cardboard. And two, I think with new technology and new companies coming into the hobby, investing a lot of their cash and and making collecting and investing in sports cards more appealing, that will invite more new collectors to come into the space. And when that happens, I'll still be here, still looking to buy cards for my PC, still looking to make that flip so I can invest in more Grail cards, all while trying to connect with my fellow collectors who are in it for the long haul. All right, that's it for me, guys. Thanks as always for listening to our podcast. And if you thought this long monologue just wasn't your thing, don't worry, guys. Boys will be back for our next episode. I'll see you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at FiveCardGuys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at FiveCardGuys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.